Hello and welcome to Tuning In, which is a show that I've done and hosted before where um, we invite you to tune into the energy of now. And sometimes when you tune into that energy, you're feeling good things, unsettling things. But one thing and one subject that seems to be missing from our mainstream space is the things that make us feel good and grounded and like wanting to be cuddled up in a blanket. And for me, two of those things are crystals and blankets and also, as you know, having a cup of cafecito, having all those things in my environment, and maybe a little book or listening to a nice maybe conversation like we're about to have. That's like the perfect recipe. So mi gente, take a little moment right now, maybe get your little warm tea, your little cafecito, and come hang out. I've got two amazing guests that I'm really excited for you to meet and get to know their story and get to know why I'm really excited to have them on my show today. Okay, introducing to you Arthur Franklin and Kirsten Maury. Mo- Welcome to the show. How are you?
We're doing well. Thank you so much for having us. We're looking forward to this chat.
Kirsten, I would like to begin with you. um Please, introduce yourself to the community and tell me, if you want to introduce the subject, why, what brings us here today, because I'm excited about one of the main topics we'll be discussing.
Sure. So the beauty about this is, the universe works in mysterious ways. And so I grew up just north of you, Rose Angel, in Westchester County, New York. And I grew up in a family that was very outdoorsy, very sports oriented, but non traditional sports. So things like camping, skiing, hiking. And I've learned through the years that what that allowed me to do is to really tune into my body. I really learned how to develop an acute awareness in high performance sports. So I played sports all through college, and I actually even coached sports into my 40s. And so it was a beautiful combination of working somatically through my body to understand that the subtle messaging that I received was where the high acute and high performance was, but it was always in combination with nature and outside. And so it's really interesting and fascinating because Arthur grew up in Hawaii. So the two of us met together in Colorado. And so it's like the universe brought us from opposite polar ends into the middle. And we were both high level athletes and very connected to the outdoors. I was on always connected to skiing. And so I used water in the frozen form. And Arthur was always connected to surfing. And so he was using water in that form. But I think ultimately where it really brings the story forward is that we understood what it was like to be in flow because we were in tune with our body and we were in tune with nature. So it's the combination and the blend of those that I think brought us together for a fascinating story of why we are here. Because Arthur created an incredible invention of the crystal blanket. And so, what that is, it's a blanket that combines the beautiful elements of nature, and it allows us to tune into the subtle messaging of crystals and what they have to offer. So it helps us to ground and to feel peaceful. And when we do that, our body can heal. And so it's just been a beautiful journey. So that's my story.
I love it. Arthur, I'm so excited to be speaking with you. I want to know more about these blankets, but we need to learn about you a little bit more.
Well, hi, it's a real pleasure. And, I've always connected with nature. I was one of those kids that I liked animals and nature more than humans. And so I had the opportunity to talk with nature right from a very, very little age, a very young age. And I had also sports was such an amazing thing for me. I could pick up anything and just feel like I'd been playing it for years. It was just interesting. Didn't matter what it was. I started skateboarding at age 5 when skateboards came out, and, and I was like top 20 in the world in the 70s, skateboarding and getting paid to have fun, which is always the best kind of thing to get paid for when you're having fun. I also got an opportunity to learn how to surf in Hawaii. So that was wonderful. And between skating, skateboarding, and surfing, and running, uh, and out in nature was always something that one needed to have, this agility and this ability to adapt instantaneously by being in the flow. And so that's, I think, where Kirsten and I, our bridge meets is we're always in flow. We're always trying to find the balance in the flow. And it just allowed me in whatever I did. And I was in water conservation things, I was in private aviation. I did a number of different, um, uh, adapting in a given field or a profession. Because I was an inventor, I was excited about, how I could help the earth, how I could make, not toxic water going into storm drains, and the list goes on. But it was always, how do I protect nature? So that's how it started to come together, and it's still going today.
That's really beautiful. I mean, the both of you have such fascinating stories, and I want to ask questions about, because I grew up in an urban setting. And for those who know my journey, they know that the peak of my awakening experience happened when I reached the threshold in my body where I couldn't even hear my thoughts. Like, there was so much, output, especially working in television media, and I was working at MTV. So there's so much input everywhere, and everybody has an opinion, and everybody has a point of view, and you got to listen and sort of my job was to balance it all, integrate it, make peace, and make it work, right? I was the glue of the team. And I realized I lost myself in that process. And it wasn't until I took myself to nature completely. I mean, I went to a place called Present Moment. And it was perfect. I went to a place in Mexico and pretty much spent that whole week and change alone. I ate alone. Well, I ate by myself, but I allowed some mingling. But pretty much, the intention of that was I want to hear what I think. And the biggest epiphany when I came back was what was different about all the other vacations or other spots that I had been to. Why did this wake me up, and all of the other settings that I had been to didn't? Well, I was by myself, and I was, well, I mean, other people there, but that I had allowed that to be a space where I could actually start listening to the different layers of how nature is always seeking to communicate with you. And I realized that sometimes there's such a density in New York City that hearing and being connected to that is difficult. Now, I believe one of the reasons crystals came into my life for my sister was they became that bridge to us, in, in the urban setting of nature. And when people would come in, we named it botanical, right? And we said botanical like the elf of love, but also it was a little homage to the spiritual shops that we grew up with that would be called botanicas, but we didn't feel like that was our expression. But what was a calling for us was that we wanted to be in a space where maybe we can be helpful to people, connecting organically to just crystals. And so when people would come into our space, you don't understand the many trigger points that they would feel from getting upset or had such tininess, or getting upset that we had no signs on the crystals, or that we weren't saying like, this is the stone of love and this is the stone. And we were like, no, we want you to really be here for you. What is just, and little by little we were just we were learning from the crystals, and we were learning from every exchange that we had with someone who would come in. And every single time that we witnessed someone connect organically and pick up a crystal, that it was there were when you started probing deeper into their story, there was always many synchronicities that made sense, that led up to the moment after, as to why they chose, for example, the crystal that they ended up with. And there was either like, I had a dream, or oh my god, this is the same, I didn't realize this what it was called, somebody had mentioned this to me, whatever it was. But that, when witnessing people connect and understanding that, what my sister and I were doing, and while we were also learning from our crystal friends, was that, yeah, there's books, and there could be guidelines, and they could help you, but there's something so beautiful and natural and simple just from this connection.
Mm.
Rose Angel, did this retreat happen to be in Zihuatanejo, Present Moment Retreat? I was there as well.
It
And
was in Mexico,
yes,
Troncones, Mexico.
Trancones. I was there as well. So I spent time at the Present
Wow.
Moment Retreat, and I spent a week there, and then I spent a week surfing just north of there. And can I tell you, I'm getting chills. So here's how the universe really works. That evening, one of the evenings, I spent staying awake all night, and I watched the moon rise, and I watched the phases of the moon, and I watched the stars come out. And that evening, on the beach, I was gifted a kuya. I have a shamanic practice, so I study an earth honoring practice. And this was before I even knew I was going to do this. This piece came with me, and it looks like the celestial stars. And I took that piece on Troncones on the beach, and I took it with me. And for a decade, I had it, and I didn't know. I just needed to have it and be with it. And must have been communing with it, right? To this day, now fast forward, I have a shamanic practice, and I work on an altar with crystals. And guess where that sits? In the West. And it's the depiction of the earth, the grandmother moon, and the waters, and the flow of life. And so this is incredible. I can't believe that I'm talking to you, because this is a piece that I work with daily. Oh my gosh. Woo!
You left me speechless.
Yeah, it happens. Oh, that's so
Wow.
fantastic.
And the energy in my body is like just saying the universe just wanted to put us together, because maybe we had both experienced breakthroughs at that beach at that time, and I didn't know what that piece was going to be used for. And like you're saying, you had a moment where it allowed you to ground and slow down. And that's what we're saying. When you slow down enough, you can pick up on the subtle messaging. And that small, subtle messaging that the universe gives are those messages that allow for flow, joy, creativity, and life. Oh my gosh.
Wow, that's a perfect segue regarding crystals. Uh,
People know that I can talk forever in a day, so they must be like, this girl just stopped. But here's the thing, though. I feel this charge in my body
mhm.
from head to toe just now.
Yeah, same.
Like, I feel really electrified, and
Mhm.
I'm in shock in the most magnificent way. I'm in a state of ultimate gratitude. I also want to just, as I'm thinking here, I want to say thank you to Andrew, because he's a brother. I love him so much, and he's such a. I feel like he's my gratitude brother,
Yeah.
really, because when I think about Andrew, I think about grace,
Mm.
Mm.
you know, and he just always knows who to connect people with, and I appreciate him. I appreciate how this conversation is flowing thus far, and now we're here at a point where we can talk about the crystal blankets.
Well, I'm excited to share that with you. I'd like to talk specifically for just a moment and share that uh, some individuals in the science and earth world, a person like Greg Braden, who's an interesting individual who um, talks about how this kinetic energy can travel from Earth to the moon in under 7 seconds. This is measurable science. This is not woo woo, and this is you know we have an electromagnetic field, right? It comes from our heart, and the crystals have their own version of that called piezoelectric, where that electric energy is magnified, producing light. And the smallest particles, which our crystals are go through 6 processes of grinding down to where they're in nanoparticles and up to a few microns in size, which is very, very small. To give an idea on how small that is, if one um, fiber, alpaca fiber, is between 8 and 10 microns, this is half its size, the particle sizes. So very, very small. And when particles, when you look at light in physics, in the very basic sense, light in physics, it talks specifically about particulates, which are the smallest, most minute particles, which, um, when light passes through it, it transmits information. Literally, it particulates are information. Every particle in our body has a bit of information. And so when these crystal blankets are produced, these crystals go through several intentions and prayers, explaining to the crystals that they have this. We're creating an opportunity for them to reach thousands and tens of thousands and many, many people. And because there's 96 crystals in this particular blanket, different forms and kinds of crystals, it creates a coherent field which allows, if you could express it, it would be like a grand symphony where you hear all these notes and all these different bass tones and string instruments and horns and on and all those different uh, frequency tones that are in that the crystals produce creates these coherent waves, these coherent um, and a coherent energetic field. And so that field then, when it's held close to the body, it creates a reverberation, and it moves through a far infrared spectrum, like far infrared. It creates a far infrared spectrum, and then all these frequencies that are being transmitted into the crystal work as a energetic field that allows the body then to absorb what it needs and find balance. That's the short version.
And that makes sense. Ooh. Oh, wow.
It's
I
not rough.
like
I know a lot of people might think that, because you take crystals, that this blanket must be rough, but because we spin it with organic cotton, it has that really cotton soft texture. So,
I definitely know I want one. I know my sister's gonna it's gonna be a competition about who wants ones in my inner circle, and our community members, you're listening in, please plug where they can find it and buy some. Your website is crystalblanket.com, right?
That's correct.
that's
Yep.
correct. And we're
We're
also
gonna be submitting the link below. Um, I thank you first of all for breaking down um why this is not woo woo, because some people, I cannot believe the amount of times, like, uh before the show I was saying that sometimes in the shop it will feel like a challenging experience, right? And it's because sometimes, when somebody will walk in, they would walk in always, as I guess humans do, with preconceived notions as to what a space is going to look like. And for me, I feel like crystals have a variety of lessons to teach humanity. And part of it is isness, right? Like a certain mineral is a certain mineral is a certain mineral. So, another part is that each person might be called to work with a mineral because they're a different human being moving through different moments. I learned that my sister and I, she is like my water energy. So when you were speaking about the water energies that have been a part of your lives, I'm so much in the fuego category that I think God was like, we need to send you as much water energy, girl, as possible. And my sister, when she was born, I was like my favorite gift of the universe. And she's like my Pisces, my water energy. And being in partnership with her and seeing the different expressions of how people organically connect with minerals, really, this is why we tell people, and this is why I'm being a broken record to you guys community members, is that this is beyond the book. Like, I've met so many people that are really just up here with crystals, right? Where they're just like, oh, this is pink, this is just for love, or I'm going to put it here and it's going to do this. And now you're talking to me about working with a mineral and also explaining to everyone in a scientific way what's happening, what it's doing, what how this is penetrating, why people are feeling a a a a synergy or coherence. Maybe they feel more relaxed in their body, or maybe things are opening up, or maybe they feel like they're purging, or maybe all of a sudden they want to start crying. What are some of the testimonials that you hear from people using the crystal blankets?
Okay. Um, wow, there's a lot.
Let's get into them. People love to hear these stories.
So, my sister was, uh, she's caught, I don't know, 1,500 babies. She was a midwife. She's now retired, my younger sister. And she encouraged me to make the blanket, small ones for kids and babies. And we made some, and the mothers just couldn't believe what happened. So a lot of the mothers, before they birth, they get the blanket and they put it on, over their, over their, their whole trunk of their body, and they get very relaxed. And some of these messages from the mothers are like, "Oh my gosh, my child! I feel so much more connected to my child." And then when they birth the child, they they wrap the baby in the blanket right away, and they're like, oh my god, the baby just goes to sleep. So when the screaming baby is there, or she's edgy or fussy, just wrap the blanket around the baby, and off she goes or he goes to sleep. So that's, one of my more favorite stories, and of course the animal one that I've shared many times, because it's still a mind boggler to me. So there's a Jack Russell and there's this cat. Now you can imagine a Jack Russell and a cat. Those two have, totally different personalities. And this couple sent us this testimony saying, "Oh my gosh, our dog and cat won't even stay in the same room with each other. They won't even hang out with each other. They're like, they agitate each other." And we left the blanket on the couch, and we came home and they're both snuggled up next to each other on the blanket. And I went, wow, that speaks for itself.
That says a lot. I couldn't even imagine. I used to have a Jack Russell. I could not imagine him and a cat. That would be problems.
And we have a lot of practitioners, everyone from acupuncturists to Reiki to, body workers. and they'll place the blanket underneath or on top of the table, right? They have a heating pad, and they put the blanket on, and they put the sheet on over that. And the testimonies are just limitless. The amount of people say it's so much easier to work with my client on the table because their central nervous system is calmer. And so I can read, I have an ability to read the body a lot better. So those are a few.
Mhm.
Well, if your central nervous system is calmer, I'm going to assume, please correct me, fill in the details, that people are getting better sleep.
Mm. Those are definitely some of our testimonies. I just had a friend, she uses the Aura Ring, and so she noticed that she was getting deeper REM sleep while using the blankets. So, yeah, I sleep with mine directly on top of me, and it just, I have to get up in the middle of the night. And so, what I've recognized over the course of time is that I'm able to fall asleep much quicker when I get up. It just lulls me back into my sleep space, so I don't stay in a headspace. I just go right into my deeper sleep, which is nice.
Wow. I mean, there's a lot of people that struggle with that nighttime routine and filling and creating a space. I mean, goodness, we're in New York City. You guys hear all the stories. We're in ground zero for all the nightmares lately. At least because the media loves to sensationalize, and partly is a lot of it is just there's a lot of angry energy, a lot of also PTSD energy that's in the environment all of the time, and I can see how a crystal blanket could be, very beneficial. Is part of the reason why people are also feeling so grounded, and is it because it's blocking some of the crap that we feel from the internet waves, smart meters?
All of that. Yeah, it does. It has several crystals in there that work for increasing the, let's call it the healthy electromagnetic field, which creates a layer of protection. It also has the ability, we have 15, there's been 15 studies done on this technology. So everything from, I'll just say it, increasing mother's breast milk, to increased circulation, oxygen, depth of sleep, recovery from exhaustion, the central nervous system. There's four of those studies all kind of cross pollinate to the same results of the central nervous system being close to homeostasis after 30 minutes of lying under the blanket. So it does have a, it does have a huge impact, and we have the science, to back it, and it just allows uh, to feel calmer right away. Most people that have any level of sensitivity, within a matter of seconds to a half a minute, they completely tell the difference by just draping the blanket over their shoulders.
And this makes sense. I mean, I sleep with crystals, and that has been always fun for anyone who has slept next to me. Like, oh my God, I just found another crystal. Oh, hit my rock. And I'm like, that's my grounding. Then I need this one. And
I love it.
they're really like, if I were to just spin my camera around, you wouldn't be surprised. You'd probably be chuckling. Now, my question is, because I could just feel my crystal community. Just ask this question, Ra. How did you decide which crystals? And is that a secret recipe? Like,
It's definitely a secret recipe. Do you want to share that, Kirsten?
No, this is yours. This is
Oh,
your
okay.
baby.
All right. Well, I started with 2,300 crystals, and went all the way down, going. I have what I call um, a clear audio. I can hear energy. I can hear frequency, like literally hear it when I'm really quiet and still. And so I would put two crystals next to each other, and I would hear either a rhythm, meaning a harmony, or not a harmony. And so I kept putting the crystals next to each other and next to each other. And then I started adding the ones that felt more, the alchemy felt more natural, like they were brothers or they were sisters or they had an understanding. And then I would started to build it from there, like, okay, which ones work with, you know, the higher frequencies, such as, real high notes, like say out of the body or above the body, just like a scale, right? It's a musical scale in a sense. And then the ones that were down in the feet and down in the and in the pelvis and in the heart, and I just started putting those together, and I could keep hearing a symphony being created. So it started with 33, and then it went to 55, and then it went to 88, and now we're at 96.
Wow, that's really beautiful. I remember the time that we had a woman walk into the shop, and she was the first person who mentioned that she could hear the crystals. And you meet people with so many different gifts, and she was my first. So all of a sudden she's like she's like looking at a few that were in front of her, and she's just smiling big, and I didn't know what was going on, right? And she's like, oh my god, your crystals are singing, oh, this is so beautiful. And she was just glowing. And my mind, that was like, I wish I knew what the chorus sounded like, because I want to know. I love the music. I was getting a little jellies, but I didn't it was one of those things where no, I'm lying. I wasn't jealous. I was really excited to learn about a new way that people could connect to the frequencies. It was really exciting to me, and it was also testimony to me that my sister and I were doing something good. Like, we were terrible business. We were not. We were trying to do this. We were terrible, but when we opened the shop, we were like, the intention is love, and whoever walks in, whether they buy anything or not, we're just going to witness them, and we're going to love them up, not from stereotypical mushy Puerto Rican, I'm going to hug you, kiss you, because everybody has their different boundaries, but just, we're going to witness your magnificence, because every single person walking in is a little miracle, a beautiful, beautiful miracle. And all these crystals, you got all these families of rose quartz, and they're all different, but they're all the same. And some of them are a little brighter, some of them are a little darker, some of them feel more soulful, some of them may feel more cheery. And these are all your family members right here. They're all different. So stop trying to be anybody but you. And my God, like, I just, my whole body feels really just fulfilled from head to toe. I really feel grateful that we're having this experience. And I want to ask you if there's other things that you would like to share about the crystal blankets. I am already sold. I know I want one of these.
Well, I'm gonna kind of go off topic, which will bring us back into topic. I want to say, there's still a lot of skepticism around the crystals, even with the science behind it and all that. And I have another friend that's we've been friends for, I don't know, over 10 years, and he was one of the first people, and I know there's quite a few people out there now, but I think he was probably the first person in this country that had this device that he could um, have these little alligator clips that he would clip onto different fir and pine trees, small ones, little saplings, and they produce sound frequency. And people are like, "Oh, come on! What are you talking about? Plants making music? Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "Well, go experience for yourself." And now, of course, there's quite a few people around the world that are sharing this technology. And it's really a harmonization of sound. We all have sound. We all have a message. It doesn't matter if it's a physical form, if it's a tree, if it's a person, if it's an animal. And the more sensitized that we are to it, and we get really real with ourselves and bring ourselves into a place of quiet or silence, we can hear, we start to hear things. And sometimes it takes longer for others. Like you, was Angela, you said, you know, when you had to go down into Mexico to have this experience. And I, I mean, I'm happy to send this to you. It's again, it's a little off topic, but I on Christmas Day I got woken up at 5 a.m. Um, and I got told from the ethers, from the Creator, however you want to verbalize it, that to write these words down. I'm like, oh wow, okay. So I wrote all these words down, and then I hear, okay, now record it. What? Record it? And I recorded it, and I sent it out to well over 50 people, and I could not imagine the responses that I was going to get back. I was kind of blown away, and I think it's because I asked people, hey, when you just have a moment, just 10 minutes, really sit in silence and then listen to this. And I think that's what we're all learning to do. Is what you mentioned earlier, Kirsten, was just we got to slow down and we've got to listen. So the I'll send you the recording if you want to share it with people. That's great. It's called "The Wonder of You."
I
So,
love that.
yeah.
I would love that. I'm sharing, I have a Substack called 29 Love Letters, and it's really a gratitude challenge.
Mm,
I've been doing it on and off for like 10 years with people, and I haven't really done it much in the last couple of years. So it's like I need an attitude adjustment. Let me just start this. And part of my sharing always includes videos, like things that other people are creating or sharing that that feel good or open the soul up, or these human moments that remind a person, like something that I shared in a recent Substack was like every single time I want to give up on humanity, you know, I see a smile of a child or a little puppy and I'm transformed again just in that instant. And I'm like, no, this is just too cute. I gotta keep on going. And believe it or not, there are some crystals that that make me feel excited in a certain way like that. And whenever I would, or my sister, we would spend our whole day like working around crystals, like at an event where everybody's at a convention center, and you're there all day talking metaphysical stuff, just surrounded by all these crazy crystals. Then I get home and I feel like I'm having all these out of body experiences, and also like I'm feeling like I'm cleansed, and I go through this purging, and sometimes I go through this crying session, or sometimes I'll get the flu a little bit and then just feel better right away. But there's always like an arc of something, or whatever I was moving through, it comes out. And many of these experiences happen organically. It wasn't that I was looking at a book and I made myself believe it. um one time my sister and I were just unpacking crystals just to put them in the shelf, and I didn't realize that those crystals were known to just really bring old stuff up. And while I'm unpacking these crystals, I start becoming a sobbing mess. There was no conversation. We weren't talking about anything. We were just literally just unpacking. And I was, just in that mode. And all of a sudden, the crystals was like, oh no, mamas, we're going to have a little session here. You just don't know about it, but welcome.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
that's what they do. So, mi gente, I would say, please, crystalblanket.com, right? Or blankets.
Crystal blanket.
Okay, excuse me, crystalblanket.com. I want to make sure that I put the link in the bottom, because especially if you're in a city and you don't feel a connection to nature, and you guys know us in I don't know what the beep that was. And you guys know we always here as a squeaky wheel, we've always told you that one of the reasons we love working with crystals is that they're our access point to nature, especially when you're in urban setting. That's and people who are just within a certain kind of pattern. the fact that you could sort of wrap yourself in a blanket and without thinking or doing anything, you are shifting your pattern. It's almost like you're creating a different ritual. Are you also maybe rebuilding neuron pathways when you start creating like those mini changes?
Of course. Yeah, of course. And that's why I think it's so. What was coming up when you were sharing that was, our children are overtaxed and overstimulated. And so it's not that sometimes I sit down with my children and share everything, but I do know that when they sleep with the blanket or a crystal next to them, without explaining so much, that they're receiving some beautiful benefits. And I do believe that it does help to shift the neural pathways because the crystals have been in the earth for millennia, right? So they hold the wisdom and they hold the beautiful messaging and patterns that are closest to Mother Nature and to Source. And so that messaging coming through when you're calm, your body does have an opportunity to use that messaging and then incorporate maybe a pattern that's closer to that, which is the homeostasis, which is the most natural state. So, yeah, beautiful.
N- Many people don't know what that feels like.
Mm,
Well,
I know people who don't know what it's like to just be a moment, not even one moment without there being some sort of noise,
yeah.
you
mhm.
know.
Have to always have the TV on or the radio on or music on or no stillness. Yeah.
We
Well,
have AirPods on all the time now.
right.
Yeah.
Well, and sitting in front of the computer, a lot of people, countless people, have the blanket and they just drape it like I've done, just over the shoulders, and it creates a calming effect when they're sitting in front of the electronic um, computer, iPad. A lot of, I think you do something too, right?
I keep
Where
it on my lap. I really do.
when
It really helps to ground me.
she's in, she tells me she's sitting on the couch or whatever, and she lays the blanket on her lap and then puts her laptop on top of that and works. And so she says she notices a total difference, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great news, because I know people who just even touching the laptop, sometimes they feel
Mm,
some like not so good feeling, tingling sensations from just. And I know there's a subset of people who think that this conversation is like, whoa, those are nuts. No, like there's sensitivity. People really can be in a room and just feel very disturbed. Like the LED lights, for example, are very disturbing. And I know a lot of people who don't know anything. They're not in any, like, they're not reading about things. They just know all of a sudden we all got to be around these lights. And people are reporting a lot of headaches, or they're having trouble, like they're squinting. And I feel like humanity is realizing that, yeah, it's great to have technological advancements, and it's great to have these comforts where everything is so instantaneous in technology and smartphones, but our bodies are feeling it. And there's a lot of young people, like you were saying, the young people are feeling it too. Like I have my niece, the Gen Zs and the younger folks,
mhm,
their bodies are almost like, I'm overdone with
Mhm.
this type of frequency, and they don't know what to do with where their body wants to go, but they don't know how to even
mhm,
feel some sort of relief. And just the idea of having a little blanket, I almost wish that something like this could be introduced to just in more holistic settings and more approaches, or even like hospitals, when
mhm,
you have people who are right now feeling so lonely, and they maybe wish that there could be something around them that felt a little bit more warming instead of the cold hospital, sterile looking. I mean, it has to be sterile, but I mean the looking part, it just feels there's no warmth there. And I do really feel that we are starving for anything that can remind us of just kind of going back to the hearth and seeing you wrap in your blanket. the little background being a little blanket. We need more blankets in our lives, mi gente.
Lots of blankets. Uh,
Mucho blankets. Hashtag blankets. Crystal blankets. We need them in our lives.
well, you brought up some beautiful points. Really briefly, people are taking the blankets. A lot of people feel very uncomfortable flying, um, and people put the blankets on and they get off. And we get, I mean, numerous testimonies of people getting off a 5, 8, 10, 15, 20 hour flight and going, I don't have any jet lag, or I have so much energy, I can't even believe it. That's never happened before. Or people put it on the seat of the car and they'll drive 8 hours, their destination, and they get out and they're like, I don't have any road exhaustion. And you people in hospitals, we have many healers, or many therapists, whatever, have um, come and drape the blanket on somebody in the hospital, and they're like, oh my gosh, now I'm so much more relaxed, I'm so much more at ease. Even one person said, oh, I can pass away because I feel at peace. And these are just some wonderful gifts that I'm just excited to share with people. For me, um, in the beginning, I'm like, I want it for myself. And then of course we just keep sharing it, and we're just so grateful to share this with your audience and your friends and your colleagues and people that are looking for something that's easy to use. And we're just grateful to be here.
Well, I'm going to be sharing this episode across all of my channels, which will not only be Cafecito Break, but Spicy Spirituality, which is on YouTube. And that's more of the metaphysical expression of the Perez sisters. But on Cafecito Break, we talk about all things, and part of like the cultural, everyday thing is accepting more of these conversations into our everyday, and starting to integrate them in a healthier way without dismissing people who are bringing um new approaches if the testimonials speak for themselves. And I think also too, more than anything, the vibration that the two of you emanate speaks for itself. The two of you, since the beginning of this conversation, I just feel like, where's the fireplace? I'm there with you. I feel really good. And definitely feeling really super gracious to the both of you for spending a little time with me this Friday evening. Any wrap up messages that you'd like to share with our audience?
Well, Rose Angel, just from my heart, the crystals have, obviously, I know this sounds woo woo, but connected us, because that moment that you had experienced at present moment retreat and I had, and there was a connector piece that I still work with, so dear to my heart. It just, that's the messaging that I pick up on, and the clues that allow me to just see the beauty in how the universe works and how we are all interconnected. So it's just so beautiful to be here. So thank you for this moment.
Thank
Mm.
you. And Arthur?
Well, I've got a little, where is it? Little piece of ruby here that I always wear in my pocket. And another one, huh? Ruby is, I'm a guy, right? I'm a regular guy who always carries a crystal in his pocket, a ruby in particular. And I know this story of it goes back, it goes back to Egypt, goes back to, it doesn't matter what culture, that a lot of the let's just call them the medicine men and women, or the rabbi, or the all these different forms around the world, across all time, they all cherished crystals. They all had, it didn't, maybe it was in a goblet, maybe it was on a symbol of a necklace they wore, or um, it's been used for a long time. And then all the crystals, you can't run a computer without a crystal. You can't run a watch without a crystal. You can't.
MRI.
I mean, you can't do an MRI without crystal. I mean, it's everywhere. It's just a lot of people don't. They're just not aware of it, and so. Memory is stored in crystal in our computers and everything else that we can possibly imagine. They're used somewhere. So all I can say is I invite you to explore on what you might learn from a crystal or a crystal blanket or a connection that someone has to a crystal. Let them tell you the story they experience with the crystal that they have or the connection they have. And that's what I have to share. And thank you so much.
Thank you. That brought me to emotionality. The ruby, my dad gifted me a ruby ring when I was a little girl, and he's my little angel in heaven. So, I miss him. So when you brought up that ruby,
Beautiful.
he's with me all the time, and he's the foundation of everything I think my sister and I do, because he represented community and love of people, and it didn't matter language barriers or colors or rich, poor. He saw the humanity in people, and I believe crystals in their silent way, but they're not silent. Oh, they're not silent. They're chatty patties. That's my nickname for them. But they do communicate if you are willing to listen, just like Jesus does. Knock. Then I'm there. I'm not gonna force it. I'm knocking. If you might hear the knock if you listen and you're quiet.
Right.
I love it.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
guys.
Thank you so much.
I love your heart and I love your sharing. And
Yeah.
I look forward to connecting again sometime.
Absolutely. Let's do this again, please. And again, shout out to Andrew. Thank you for bringing this amazing connection together. I feel like I connected with two soul friends. My heart feels full, and I feel like the audience can feel that, and I hope that you can feel that, because this we're creating a beautiful juicy space of crystal love, and this is all natural nature. Thank you again. God bless the both of you and everyone and all of your loved ones, and make sure you guys get a crystal blanket at crystalblanket.com. Right, mi gente. Bye now.
Ciao.